kid did, especially Spider-Man. Believe it or not, Leon, I liked Captain America a lot when I was a kid.
So did I. He's my favorite character.
Well, I mean, I don't read it
Love
that much
Captain
now.
America.
I just like, I don't know what happened. But Batman, the stuff kids read in the 70s. Not to date myself, but too late. But I gave up on it all, like most teenagers did. I just whatever. And it was about, I guess, 16 or 17, when I walked into a comic book shop, literally out of curiosity more than anything else. And someone said, "Dude, have you seen this comic, The Sandman? Issue number 7, I believe, with written by Neil Gaiman, where they brought back this old Batman villain, I believe, who had the power with the gem." To control whatever people did and made
Dr. Destiny
made a whole diner full of people basically
24 hours is the
tortured
name of
themselves to death over the space of this. And one of the most amazing horror comics ever written. I went, what in the fuck is going on with comic books? This isn't what I remember before. And that was it. That made me go, well, shit, I had no idea. I started reading Hellblazer. I started reading Shade the Changing Man.
Sandman is what got me back into collecting comics. I collected up until about 1988, and then I put it down for a while to get into punk rock and girls, and then none of that worked out. Yeah, and so by 1992, I walked into a comic book store, picked up the Sandman, and now I'm lost forever in a sexless void.
Well, I will say that, like, while 1985 was certainly the breakout year for comics. I mean, that's Mark Millar's new series based on it. Nobody ever talks about 1979, and this was a year when you had George Perez.
No one can remember that.
True. George Perez and Jim Shooter on the Avengers.
Doing cuniform comics.
You had Chris Claremont and John Byrne on the X-Men, and Frank Miller on Daredevil, and Bob Layton as the artist, and Dave McElhinney on Iron Man when Iron Man had the drinking problem. All this was going on all at the same time.
One of the great runs of Iron Man.
Yeah, it was a great run for all four. It was like the greatest run for all four of those comics.
No, you're absolutely right. All right, next question. Alex asks, "Hey guys, here in England." Yes, people in England actually read Spill, but they
Oi, mate. Oh, wait.
They do it with an accent.
Only when they're
Are they
not
the
being
Oi
cold, wet, and listening to Smith's albums.
Hi guys, here in England, the BBC was showing a special called Comic Britannia.
Wait,
What's
is that
wrong with your
Liverpool?
tongue?
Maybe edit that out.
Which part?
The whole thing where you were speaking.
He sounded like Dick Van Dyke on his first take for Mary Poppins.
It's a jolly
It's a jolly holiday with you, Mary Poppins.
All right, fine. I'm not going to try and do accents. I sure learned better from the Tropic Thunder review. All right, hey guys, here in England, the BBC were showing a special called Comic Britannia, which looked at the history of British comics. 2 works seem really interesting. Alan Moore's Lost Girls and another called Alice in Sunderland. And I'd like to know what you guys thought of them.
I just want to throw out that anybody who does anything about or based on Alice in Wonderland is a closet pedophile.
No, let's just leave that one and move on to the next question.
It's documented that Lewis Carroll was a pedophile who wrote that story. So he could,
but I like
he
some
could
Roman
seduce this young
Polanski.
girl.
I like some Roman Polanski films.
Yeah, so
and
Alice in Wonderland was all about him wanting to seduce this little young girl named Alice.
I like some Roman Polanski films. I've read Lolita. That does not
Lolita's
make me
awesome.
a pedophile.
I love that.
So, pedophile? Come on. By your argument.
The thing is, Alice in Wonderland is so it's so inherently pedophilic
I
that
didn't know
anybody
that.
who's drawn to it, who drawn to it to the point that they want to recreate it, I'm sorry.
Look, okay, I'll tell you right now, Beau is a gigantic fan of Alice in Wonderland. He has the original, like the pristine
Check
copy
under his
of
bed.
It. No, all the hookers in the backyard are like 40. Okay, so I just want to say there's obviously
those are beards.
In all fairness, I'd also like to say that I'm a giant pedophile. But
Wow.
I don't think that lends any credence to your so-called theory, Leon.
I would like to say this. Like, I've been big into the British comics, like back, like before they got co-opted by Vertigo. I was reading all those things in black and
Dredd
white.
and
Everything from 2000 AD and Warrior Magazine, like Miracle Man and V for Vendetta. I'd read those like years before anybody over here knew about them.
Grimjack English?
No, shut up.
Is it not?
No.
I was going to say,
I thought it was. I don't know.
I worked on Grimjack.
I know. That's why I brought it up.
Anyway, I'm a big lover of those. Those guys were at the forefront.
clearly
and,
not a fighter.
And clearly, Eclipse Comics and DC Comics, recognized that and brought them over here, and they became huge.
Poachers.
And as much as I love Alan Moore, Lost Girls is that thing where he lost me.
Lost Girls bored the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even jack off to it.
I know.
This is supposed to be erotica. All right, the idea is it's an erotic graphic
Okay,
novel.
I'm going to leave and take that vodka bath now. I'll be back.
It's an erotic graphic novel about the sexual adventures of Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and Wendy from Peter Pan, which sounds to me like the
Pedophilic.
hottest thing ever.
Hey, that's a jack-off-a-thon.
No, but they're
like
adults
a
now.
nubile
They're
young women.
grown up now. They're adult sexual adventures, and yet it's really dull.
Yeah.
It's Little Nemo as erotica, which does not go together.
Well, it's like a lot of
I
guys
want
who are
to
geniuses.
stab myself in the eye.
Where's my Gem and the Holograms as erotica? That's what
Actually,
I
my
want.
favorite thing about Gem and the Holograms is that their nemesis, or nemesis, if you will, was a band called the Misfits. And I just want to see, I can see, Glenn Danzig going up against Gem. That'd be so cool.
Come on, how many of you guys have watched Sailor Moon, and when she does her little change to trans dance, you kind of tilt your head to look under her skirt?
None of us.
Does that
because
work?
The rest of us are not 16-year-old girls.
Yeah, I've never
Leon.
actually seen Sailor Moon, aside from the endless gifs that people keep posting on Spill.
I thought this was the Black Lightning round.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. Quickly.
Moving on, N-Piece asks.
Oh, I was about to say, don't we? Speaking of Sailor Moon, don't we have an anime question?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
N-Piece
good.
asks,
'Cause
I
I'd
was
like to
just
answer
wondering, does any of the Leog members read Japanese comics? If so, what's your favorite and why? If you don't like the comics, what about animation? Any favorites? Who's taking it?
My favorite is nothing because Japanese manga is pretty much intended for illiterate commuters on Japanese subways. It's awful. The fact that it has overtaken the comic book section in every major bookstore is nothing more of a crime on the level of just below the Holocaust.
The views of Leog and Beau do not necessarily coincide.
In
I
fact,
would
they
just
are the
like to
direct
say that.
opposite.
Beau was actually at Pearl Harbor, by the way.
Beau
I should mention
caused
that.
Pearl
Yeah.
Harbor at this point. Jesus Christ.
The Japanese shot off his kneecaps.
Half of our audience
they're
just left.
horrible.
They're not all horrible.
And I do love quite a bit of anime. And yes,
From what I
everybody is always so, oh, you need to read Lone Wolf and Cub, Lone Wolf and Cub, Lone Wolf and Cub. And I'm sure it's very good.
It is good.
I know there is good manga out there. I'm not a big fan of it. And as far as its influence on American comics, maybe it's done something for the storylines that I don't see because I haven't read a lot of it. But as far as what it's done for the artwork, I think it sucks ass.
Wow.
You know,
What anime
I
he's
obviously
done-
was being very hyperbolic, but Leon is the one who's looking the most askance at me, and I'm like, what do you think the positive impact that Japanese manga has had on American comics?
The positive impact it's had more than anything else is that it has upped the bar on action sequences, so that the American comics have had to
Right on.
go full force on the. Anytime you've seen like a cool action sequence that has blown you away,
I think that is a legitimate thing, but I'll tell you what, that's one of the last things I actually read a comic book for. I will actually go back and read old Spider-Mans from the 60s and skip over action sequences just so I can see what's going on with Peter Parker.
You have a very valid point there, Beau. But so do you, Leon.
Yeah,
But that wasn't actually the question. The question is, do any of us read it? What's our favorite and why? I mean, I actually really liked the Death Note series when I read it after seeing the movies. I thought the manga was really good. As far as animation goes, I mean, this is an answer I've given 100 times before on Spill. But Akira, Ghost in the Shell, anything by
Ninja
Hayao
Scroll.
Miyazaki.
Yeah,
Ninja
and I'm a
Scroll.
drooling Miyazaki. Before all the anime people come up and say, "How can you not like anime?" I love Miyazaki.
I watched Nausicaa for the first time
What,
recently.
Valley of the Wind?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my
Very
favorite.
good.
That's my
Very
favorite
good.
Miyazaki.
Lock Me to Castle in the Skies is my favorite of his movies.
Castle in the Sky. I really like it because in the Americanized version, which is it's the same, which is
Oh, you mean
with Americanized
Disney's
version,
Atlantis?
but you get Mark Hamill as the bad guy.
Honestly,
which I
there's
love.
none of the TV shows that have ever had any interest for me yet. Maybe I just haven't been sat down with the right one.
You haven't watched Avatar yet, then?
No, but that's not Japanese. It's American.
Yeah, it's American.
Yeah.
Really?
I thought the same thing, and I was like, no, people corrected me on Spill.
Yeah.
Said, no, that's not Japanese.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a Japanese artist, Ryoichi Ikegami, who did he did a series called Sanctuary. It's a very political that I liked. But before that, he did Crying Freeman.
I've always heard that's great.
Well, you should read it because I worked on that also. When
I
they,
did
when
not
they brought
know
it to
that.
America, I colored it,
so.
and of all the jobs I worked on, it was one of the ones I was the most proud of.
I know. Razmir asks, this has got to be the weirdest question we've had here. Have you ever picked up a trade paperback or large graphic novel and weren't able to read it because of the smell? This is rare, but it has happened to me on a few occasions. Most recently when a friend recommended The Darkness to me. I was intrigued by the art, but the smell of the ink gave me a headache and I had to put it down. Am I the only one who, or has this happened to you or other Leog members?
With The Darkness, I was turned off by the smell of the writing.
Also, who do you think will be in the next Batman movie? I'm joking, just messing with you.
Leon actually was going to the bathroom
Yeah.
and he turned back around.
You should have seen
for
his
that
eyes.
one. I know. His eyes got so big. They actually got bigger than his head.
Yeah,
it was
they
awesome.
They were expansive, to say the least. But no, this has never happened to me. I have a terrible sense of smell, though. I smoked cigarettes for too long of my life. I regret it significantly, and it ruined my sense of smell. Beau mysteriously still smokes cigarettes, and yet is incredibly sensitive to smell.
hypersensitive. Yeah, I don't get it all.
And you read comics, and has this ever happened to you?
Yeah, a little. Sometimes, if you will, and here's another fun fact about Beau. I worked at a Borders Books for several years, and yeah, sometimes when you get the new stuff off the truck, I mean, it's not a fact of the ink still being wet per se, but it is so new that these things are printed with a variety of chemicals, and they put out a lot of different polyfluoro duocarbons or whatever.
There is
the
a
hell
short
they-
answer, right?
Yeah, the compound.
I'm sorry, Beau.
Yeah, this has happened to me.
So you have smelled a graphic novel and went, ew.
As far as something being really new and just hot off the presses, yeah. Sometimes the chemical process is involved. Yeah, you'll get something really heady and
Okay.
it'll be.
Do you ever get lightheaded? If so, which graphic novels? Let me know. Hit me up.
David Armender is asked, what superhero or villain would you like to get drunk with? And the first thing that popped in my head was Wolverine. Then I went, "What the fuck am I thinking?
Yeah, what are you
That's
thinking?
a terrible
no,
idea."
no.
Well, only because he's the most famous drinker is why it popped in my head. But then I'm like, okay, that's a terrible idea because he tends to slice into pieces people he drinks with.
No. Tony Stark. Because he's rich and he's surrounded by hot chicks.
And he actually likes buying drinks for other people.
Exactly.
That's a good one.
No, that's
a good one.
That is the answer.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter Parker. And,
Nah,
and-
Peter
well,
doesn't
no,
drink.
You wouldn't think that exactly because he doesn't drink. But every now and then and like I said, I was reading New Avengers recently, and every now and then when he finds himself in this situation that he's not used to, he over relies on the jokes. And he kind of lets go with more information than he should. I mean, he's kind of like a drunk, already.
You know what? He's kind of a cute guy.
Yeah.
But he's not used to drinking, so he would get really drunk, and you would be the good friend who's taking
You
care
would
of
be the
him.
good friend.
Like,
And
you
he would
have to
tell
excuse
you
my friend.
the coolest fucking stories
So he
you
would,
have ever
he would
heard in your life.
He'd call the pussy over, and it'd be up to you to just pick it
exactly.
off.
This is turning into slash fiction.
As long as we're going there, I'm going to go with She-Hulk.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Oh well, if
Yeah,
we're
but-
just going there, then it's Kitty Pryde. She's getting really drunk, so drunk that I look like Colossus.
I'm going with Jean Grey, actually. Yeah.
Really?
You really think you'd have
Wow,
a chance?
I didn't know you had any suicidal ideas.
She would take one look at you before the first shot crossed anyone's lips and say, "No, I don't think so."
If you can't turn that
she'd
woman
read-
into Phoenix, then I don't know anything that can.
She'd read your mind without reading your mind.
She wouldn't even have to. She'd just go,
Yeah, I know what you're all about, dude.
Yeah.
I can see right through you.
It's not just telepathy. Body language can speak volumes. All right, Mike to the World asks,
Mike to the world.
and this is the first guy ever to ask a question with all of our names listed in the question.
Right on. Oh, hey, he gets the prize. What do we have to give him?
Well done, Mike.
He says, "Dear Jason Beau," spelled correctly.
I know.
Leon
well
and
done.
Cyrus. First of all, love the Leogs, but my local comic book store closed down, and the nearest is, kid you not, about 2 hours away, and I'm not going to drive that long no matter how much I love comics anyway.
Then you're not really a comic book fan.
My question is there any websites where you can read comic books for free? I'm not aware of any, but you can get subscriptions to anything.
Yes.
You can buy graphic novels of anything. You've got a post office box or something, or you've got a mailbox outside your house. You have an internet connection.
I would love for you to go pick up single issues because that drives the industry. But if you can't do that, I'll bet wherever you are, there's at least a Barnes & Noble or a Borders that you can pick up a trade paperback, and those will compile, 5 to 6 issues.
Or
at a
hell,
time.
order them off of Amazon.
Yeah, or
You can
BarnesandNoble.com.
get them off Amazon. You can get them off.
Don't download comics because the comic book industry, it's not something that's just totally flush with cash. And your local comic book store, these guys aren't rich, and they're scraping by.
And if you're in the Austin area, you should stop by Austin Books.
Austin
One of the
Books.
greatest comic book
Or
stores.
Dragon
Or
Slayer.
Dragon Slayer.
Yeah,
Either one of them
and
very
Austin
good.
Books is having a
Although
big
Austin
Labor
Books
Day
is better.
sale coming up.
Thank you. That was the League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen's blatant plug of the week. Thank you. We're all so grateful for your understanding and lack of condemnation. Keep in mind, while no one actually pays for any promotion of their products directly to any member of Leog, well, we can dream, can't we? So keep your eyes peeled next time for this sound. And one of us might have just bought groceries from a real supermarket this week. Or who knows, maybe even paid rent. You just never know the magic that can happen at Spill. Now, back to the League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen, already in progress.
I've gotten a very personal email from the owner of Austin Books, who has funded us back when even in the Real Deal days.
Okay, well then
like
Austin
ads.
Books is clearly where you want to go for your comic books here
Yes.
in Austin.
And not only that, they've just redesigned the store. I mean, they're one of the few places that you can go that has
they host
back.
24-hour
They're
comics
day. The
day.
only place you can go to get back issues.
Yeah, I actually went there and got a bunch of old Conan and Shang-Chi comics, actually.
Those Shang-Chi. Sorry, those Shang-Chi comics are my favorites in the world.
I love
Me
those.
too. Oh, God, I got a bunch of those
Master
from
of
Austin
Kung Fu.
Books.
I just
Yeah.
downloaded all. I mean, I just picked up the whole. Okay. Anyway, Santos asks, while the darker, more vicious and homicidal Joker is the most widely accepted version of the character among comic book fans, which story featuring the lighter and sillier version of the Joker, the one most prominent around the 50s and 60s, is your favorite? Beau is pulling a Mr.
thought we answered this
Cocktail.
last week.
Almost all of those are really douchey. The only one that's worth a crap is the one where the Joker decides to pull the best boner in town.
And shoot Barbara Gordon through the spine?
From the 70s, early 70s, written by
Jokerfish.
Yes, thank you.
Jokerfish.
Thank you.
Jokerfish.
Yes.
Yeah, and I believe that is Denny O'Neil.
Denny O'Neil and
Yeah.
Marshall Rogers.
Is it Giordano?
No,
Or-
Marshall Rogers was the
Marshall
artist.
Rogers.
That's the one right there.
Yeah, no, and it is that's the archetype. That's the one that sets up the Joker for what he becomes.
It really, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like the Joker was one thing, and
Yeah,
Neil Adams
that
made
was the
something
first
else.
one.
But when once he did the Jokerfish, that's when he
that
became.
was the first one where like one of his henchmen doesn't laugh at one of his jokes, so he pushes him into a moving car.
Yeah, awesome. That was the first moment of the scary Joker.
Yeah.
Death Metal Mike asked, I don't know many comics outside of Marvel and DC, and maybe a little Dark Horse, but what 5 comics outside of that much I check out? I'm going to start with this because I pre-picked mine. Grimjack from Eclipse. Was it?
No,
First
Comics.
Comics. This is how Leon and I
Leon
first
just gets
bonded between that
glowy.
and Electric Light Orchestra. We were like, oh my God, we love both these things. Yes, I know, Greg. It's shocking, but we both bonded on ELO. The only black man on the planet who thinks ELO is cool. Grimjack, which I absolutely adore. Please, people, if you have not, they reprinted these early books recently. They're brilliant. They're funny. They still haven't reprinted the ones that Leon worked on, but it's a really clever, like endless parallel universes type of comic book universe with a guy who's a professional assassin who can't die because he just reincarnates over and over again with all his memories every time you kill him. Great stuff. Miracle Man, one of the greatest comics ever written. You can't buy it except used. Hopefully someday.
But don't download it, whatever you do.
Hopefully someday Todd McFarlane will pull his own dick out of his own ass and stop being such a massive douchebag, and you'll be able to get it again. Invincible, which is something we've talked about recently with Jason F. Absolutely adore this book.
Yes.
It's a weird mix of classic old school Marvel comics.
It was Ultimate Spider-Man before Ultimate Spider-Man started.
Yes, it was.
Leon recently gave me a hardback collected trade of that, and I read it. And it starts off as just a pastiche of all of the good stuff, all of the origin stuff from original comics, Spider-Man and Superman and all that. And then it takes a turn, and it turns into something very compelling, very dark, and very cool.
Invincible?
Yeah.
I love that too.
Hold on, I'm not done. I got two more. Planetary.
Planetary's very good.
Which is Warren Ellis. Beautiful, incredible conspiracy and superheroes mixed together. Amazing. Imagine a world where these guys actually stumble across the from Japanese movies, the Monster Island, and they go there, and all Godzilla and Mothra are really there. They really existed. We just covered it up.
Don't they come across like the John Woo archetypes in one?
Yeah. No, it's brilliant in the way that
they do Jules Verne.
Yeah.
They do Monster Island. They do
H.P.
John
Lovecraft.
Woo,
Yeah.
They do H.P.
They
Lovecraft.
bring this stuff in,
They
but they
do
do
the
it
old
with
Doc
a-
Savage stuff.
with a
It's
comics sensibility, and I don't mean comic books.
Basically,
comic
they
funny.
explore all of the predecessor genres going up to comic books.
Yes,
and
exactly.
they're awesome.
And bring it up to modern day
Yeah.
in the sense that this happened a while ago. We're rediscovering it, and then Hate, Peter Bag's Hate,
Ooh,
which by
yeah.
all
about it.
means,
Yeah.
if you have never read this or his, I guess the Bradleys was the follow-up.
The very first stuff, the Hate comes from a comic called Weird Stuff, which started publishing in the 80s, which had several different characters. One of the main characters was this kind of teenage ne'er-do-well named Buddy Bradley. Buddy Bradley, it's a really great archetypal comic book because Buddy Bradley, in 1990, he became the main character in his new series called Hate, and it's a really good kind of break off from the 80s to the 90s. I mean, the Hate comics is very much about the 90s, whereas Weird Stuff is very much 80s oriented.
So what's your list?
I was actually totally going to say Hate, dude. You totally beat me to the punch. I would also say a really, really good companion piece to that is Daniel Clo's 8-Ball series,
Yes.
which is absolutely amazing. That's where we've talked about this in the past. The movie Ghost World comes from the pages of 8-Ball. They also have some very incredible other collections, one of which is like a velvet...
Iron Hand and a velvet
like an
glove.
Iron Hand and a velvet glove,
Yeah.
something along those lines.
And Ghost World.
And Ghost
Which
World.
you might know from the Ghost World movie.
Lately, he's kind of taken it's been about 3 years since he's come out with a new issue, but all of the, I believe, 15 issues are well worth checking out. I would also, one of the things I was first going to launch into is Fables, as far as use superhero types. It's a great kind of introduction into like a little bit of an indie comic. Fun stuff. It deals with fairy tales in the real life world. That's the starting point. It goes on to so much more than that. And it's since Cyrus stole the other Hate from me, I'd also say Jack of Fables, which is the companion piece for that.
No, Fables is great. Indeed, Jason turned me on to Fables. The guy who did it. His girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes, one
I've
of us.
never actually read much of it.
Yeah,
One of us has actually touched a woman.
It's funny because Grant. I mean, I'd actually read the first one, but Grant was the one who like really got me into reading it.
Wow.
And I would want to say one other thing just because I think it should be said, and I don't think we've said it on Leog enough. Even though we definitely bring up Alan Moore, we definitely bring up the Sandman, but we haven't really mentioned this a lot. Preacher. Boy, if you want to do a really, really damn good indie series, Preacher. That is the one.
Preacher, that's maybe my favorite comic series of all time. But I would also throw out, Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Walking Dead, hell yeah.
Love and Rockets, and to you know what, you guys have grabbed most of the good ones, but I will throw out like what's my favorite indie comic running right now is Powers.
I'm gonna have to go with Proof, which is kind of an X-Files thing, but a little bit more supernatural.
No, I have not read that.
I know he's loaned it to me,
very
and I'm trying to wade through everything else to get to.
Very good, and also something from Archaea Comics, which is a reprint of a French comic book. It's called The Killer. And it's about an assassin, and it is damn good. But it comes
can't
out
make up my mind.
very irregularly.
I can't make up my mind whether you're being snobby or geeky.
Mike to the World asks, what is your guys' opinion on Mac Gargan, the new Scorpion, as Venom, and the new character Anti-Venom, and how much Spider-Man has gone downhill? Also, why does Jason hate Venom?
Jason and I have come up with an answer for you, though.
Oh, okay. All right.
It really sucks.
Okay.
There's your answer. Have fun.
It's terrible. Stop reading it. If you want to read Spider-Man, read Ultimate Spider-Man. Stop reading Spider-Man. Stop supporting Marvel and what they've done to Spider-Man. Just stop it.
You know what? I apologize if I've given the impression that I hate Venom. I don't. I really loved Venom when he was first introduced, but then they tried to turn him into a Punisher character, an anti-hero.
See, that's why you're my paisan.
Guys, Greg, thank you so much for coming in and being our musical guest. His fingers are bleeding, by the way. I just didn't. There's a puddle of blood underneath him. He's playing the bass for 3 hours.
I
By
know.
the way, Greg is so much more awesome than anybody else involved with this project.
Yes, he is.
And really, and I hate to say this, but everybody listening to it, too.
Pretty much everyone not listening to it. Even more so.
Major props to Greg, who's stuck with us through
Yeah.
Indeed.
hours of this. But we did get him drunk, so
Yes,
know.
we did.
Yeehaw.
We love
fed
you,
him.
geek people.
Thanks again, all you guys. Please send in your questions and your comments. And if you have an audio question, you can send that in too. We'll play that on the show.
And please don't ask us questions that we've already answered.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leog.
Good night.
Sayonara.